Well, hello, folks. This is Jeffrey Darty. I'm your Christian whistleblower. No time to spare. Let's go ahead and jump right into today's broadcast, picking up on our study about the Mandela effect and Antichrist. And where we picked off last time, actually was last week, is that Antichrist is really trying to get us to throw the baby out with the bath water. Now, there's so much that I just can't recap, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead and go back and listen to the other videos. The Mandela effect, in the final analysis, seems to be a supernatural manifestation. Something is happening, but it's a supernatural manifestation of what the dominant religious mind control matrix, aka run by Antichrist, it is an attempt by that dominant religious matrix to do what they were previously accomplishing by their former monopoly on biblical information and linguistic training. They're trying to reestablish a monopoly that they did have. They used to be able to control people's beliefs on doctrine by carefully deciding what they would release about doctrine. Now, with the invention of and the subsequent ubiquitous nature of the internet, this strategy is not nearly as effective as it used to be, and a great tool of theirs has been taken from them. I mean, here's how it used to work. Nobody, we used to not be able, we talked about this, being able to get the tools of the trade in order to be able to take a look at different things and different natures of the text. But here's just to give you an idea. For almost 400 years, they virtually have had the whole world believing that prophecies relating to the Christ are actually about Antichrist. Talk about changing things. Here's an example. Daniel 9:27. He'll confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week, he'll make the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations, he'll make it desolate. This verse, Daniel 9:27, is almost universally ascribed to acts of the Antichrist. And the plain textual facts show that this verse is actually speaking about the works of the Christ or Yeshua. It says the mighty one, he, the mighty one. Are you really comfortable making the Antichrist the mighty one? Or, from what we've learned up till now, doesn't it make more sense that the mighty one would refer not to Antichrist, but to the Christ? And then it says, this mighty one will make a pledge. And there's actually several New Testament verses that seem to indicate that Yeshua had a definite time frame in mind for his ministry in Jerusalem and in Judea. John 7:6, along with a lot of other verses, Matthew 26:18, John 2:4, John 7:8, John 7:30. In John 7:6, Yeshua said, "My time has not yet come," and that he was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel in John 15:24. It seems that Yeshua had pledged to spend a certain period of time ministering specifically to the Jewish nation. And the length of this actual ministry in Jerusalem, combined with the rest of this verse, will tell us how long this pact was. And in the middle of the pledge, this mighty one will do something. And Bible scholars have unanimously agreed that Yeshua spent about 3.5 years ministering in Jerusalem. If it does refer to Yeshua, then it was 3.5 years. If it was 3.5 years, that's half of what? That's half of 7. If Yeshua meant to spend 7, then what he spent, if he did this in the middle of the pledge, was 3.5. And this verse in the King James Version, the middle of the week, it's unanimously held by Bible scholars to be a week of years or 7 years. So he, this mighty one, will cause the sacrificial slaughtering and the gift and tribute giving to cease and desist. Now, you've been taught, and modern eschatology wants us to believe that this verse talks about some future Antichrist stopping the restored Levitical priesthood in a restored, rebuilt Jewish temple on the site that currently just happens to be occupied by the second most holy site, second only to Mecca and all of Islam, the Dome on the Rock. Come on, man, how long But we continue to blindly swallow such blatant, basely inferences to be spouted as Holy Writ. None of that is even remotely hinted at in the text, and none of it should even be remotely accepted by anyone with any devotion to the objective text. And I ask you, if the first part of that verse were about the Christ and not the Antichrist, wouldn't this second part be? 3.5 years into his ministry, the fact is that Yeshua did, in fact, cause the sacrifice to cease. This isn't from the Mandela effect. This is what the Mandela effect is seeking to hide. Now, many say it was the crucifixion. Personally, I point to Yeshua's institution of water baptism as a replacement for blood sacrifice, and his stopping of the sacrifice in the temple on Passover as a much better proof and a much better linguistic fulfillment of this verse. Think about it. It also makes the rest of this verse fit, because not only did Yeshua march into the temple and literally physically stop the sacrifice, he ran them all out of there, and this was Passover, it was all about bloodshed. Yeshua stopped it. But what else did he also do? You've seen the memes. He also overturned the tables. He also disrupted the commerce of the money changers. What were they doing? They were selling animals. What were those animals for? They were for gift, and they were for tribute. Yeshua stopped the sacrifice, the bloody sacrifice. Yeshua caused the gift giving and the tribute to cease and desist. This is perfect. This is complete. This is exact fulfillment of the prophecy of Daniel. That, my friends, is what we're talking about when we're talking about exact fulfillment of prophecy. And how ironic that the true words of the prophet that survived the lion's den have all been but consumed by the lions of modern religion. And these things, this truth of Yeshua stopping the sacrifice didn't come from the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is trying to keep that emergence of truth from coming out by muddying the waters. And people can say, oh, well, that must just be the Mandela effect. That can't possibly be true. But you see, folks, what it's doing, the Mandela effect, is it's causing people, it's giving them plausible deniability. It's giving them a reason to say, oh, no, these things can't possibly be true. These huge, fantastic, transitional changing of things can't be true, because there's just no way. There's just no way that this could be true. And they can always relate it back to the Mandela effect. But folks, if you understand that the Mandela effect is not changing these truths, the Mandela effect is trying to prevent these truths from being manifested. It's a false flag in a sense. It's a red herring. It's something that is creating enough question. It's something that's creating enough doubt. It's something that is allowing a wrinkle, if you will, that someone who wants to resist emerging new knowledge, like we're not filled with original sin, we have the spark of divinity in, that Daniel 9:27 doesn't talk about Antichrist, it talks about the Christ, Yeshua, that the abomination of desolation that we'll talk about tomorrow is not something that's going to happen in some future rebuilt temple, but something that already happened, and it's very plainly talked about in Scripture. The Mandela effect, it is weird, man. It is strange, man. It is mind-blowing. But the reason that it's mind-blowing, and the reason that Daniel himself showed us in his prophecy 3,000 years ago, man, 3,000 years ago, Daniel showed us that this Mandela effect was going to burst on the scene. He showed us it was going to be linked up to Antichrist. And he showed us that it was going to be used expressly to stop the emergence of truth and knowledge, dath, that's coming out in these days. And it's doing it by creating plausible deniability, so that will allow people the wrinkle they need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I don't have to recognize that the abomination of desolation is past, not future. I don't have to recognize that it was an Antichrist, but Yeshua the Christ that Daniel 9:27 is talking about. I don't have to realize there won't be a rebuilt temple. I don't have to realize there won't be a red heifer. I can blame it on the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect, if we allow it to, and that's why I'm making these videos, because we're trying to stop it. If we allow it to, the Mandela effect will create plausible deniability, and it'll allow weak-willed, mentally lazy people to blame things of truth, emergence of truth, on the Mandela effect. Somebody says, Jeff, does it really matter what those people believe anything anyway? I don't know. But I want to fight like hell to give every single person every single chance to be able to receive truth. And I don't want anybody to miss out on new emerging knowledge because they've bought the lies, if you will, and they straight up are lies of the Mandela effect. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about Antichrist. We know it's Antichrist, but what we want to do is identify that Antichrist. We want to identify the abomination of desolation, and we want to nail down what this Mandela effect is, what this Mandela effect is doing. Tomorrow might be the last in this series, maybe the next to last. But I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, your Christian whistleblower. I appreciate you being with us today. And whatever you do, don't miss tomorrow. And whatever you do, get ready by going back and listening to the other videos. They're all short like this one, 10, 12 minutes. So it's well worth the investment of time. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, your Christian whistleblower, bringing you peace, bringing you light, and encouraging you above all else. Oh, my friends, it's time to unindoctrinate yourself.